What if one of the oldest, most epic stories in the world isn't just about gods and warriors, but is actually a masterclass in psychology? Today, we're going to look at this really compelling idea. Krishna, not just as a divine figure, but as an ancient, and I mean surprisingly modern, master therapist. And that's really the big question, isn't it? What if this ancient dialogue that happens on a battlefield, of all places, is really a profound model for psychological healing? It's a wild idea, so let's dive in and see where it takes us.
I mean, when you and I think of therapy, right? We picture a quiet office, a comfy chair, maybe some weekly sessions. We definitely don't picture a battlefield, moments before a huge war is about to break out. But that moment of total crisis, well, that's the setting here. And it gives us a completely different way to think about what healing can look like.
So let's just go with it. Let's frame Krishna as an ancient therapist. What's so fascinating is watching how he changes his approach, his entire method, for three totally different people, each facing a completely different kind of crisis. We're going to look at them like three distinct case studies.
Okay, so case study number 1. Arjuna. He's this incredible warrior, a prince, and he's facing what we can only call a profound crisis of the mind. Right as the battle is about to start, he's just slammed with what we would recognize today as crippling anxiety, total confusion, and massive cognitive dissonance. He's just frozen.
And you can just feel it in his words. My mind is reeling. I see no good in killing my own kinsman in battle. You hear that? This isn't just a little bit of doubt. This is a complete breakdown of everything he thought he knew about himself and his world.
So, how does Krishna handle this? Well, his process is, and this is wild, remarkably similar to modern cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. First, and this is key, he just lets Arjuna talk. He listens without jumping in. Then, he starts asking these gentle, guided questions that make Arjuna challenge his own distorted thoughts. He helps him reframe the whole situation, shifting the focus away from fear and onto purpose. And then, at the end of it all, he doesn't command him. He empowers him to make his own choice. A huge piece of this is teaching Arjuna about detachment. And, that word can sound kind of cold, right? Like it means you're supposed to suppress your feelings. But that's not it at all. It's really what we now call emotional regulation. It's about learning to act from a place of clarity, not just raw impulse. It's about mastering that chaos inside you.
All right, let's shift gears now to our second case, which is a completely different kind of crisis. This is Draupadi. Her suffering isn't coming from some internal confusion. It's from a brutal public trauma that led to a deep, deep crisis of dignity.
See, unlike Arjuna's internal battle, Draupadi's pain was caused by something that happened to her. It was external harm. It was trauma. It was betrayal. And what therapists today call a moral injury, a wound so deep it shakes your sense of right and wrong. Her pain is all about violation, not confusion.
And because the wound is different, the treatment has to be different. Krishna's method here is a perfect example of what we now call a trauma-informed approach. He validates her pain, he tells her she's right to be outraged. He provides emotional safety. He works to restore her dignity, making sure this horrible event doesn't define her. And he promises justice. It's all about rebuilding that sense of safety and self-worth.
And that brings us to our third case, a crisis of the heart. This is Gandhari, the queen mother. And after the war is over, she loses every single one of her 100 sons. Her pain is, well, it's unimaginable. It is pure, all-consuming grief. Her emotional state is just this raw, churning mix of grief, rage, and a desperate need to find someone, anyone, to blame for this catastrophic loss. This is not a problem you can solve with logic. It's a wound that's so devastating it just has to be held with compassion. And here, Krishna's role shifts yet again. He becomes a grief counselor. He doesn't show up trying to fix her pain or give her platitudes. He just acknowledges her suffering. He creates a space for her incredible anger, and he absorbs it, even when she directs it right at him. And only after all of that does he gently begin to guide her towards a wider perspective, towards some form of acceptance. So when you look at these three cases, Arjuna, Draupadi, and Gandhari, a really clear pattern starts to show up. Krishna's genius as a therapist isn't in some single magic technique. It's in his incredible adaptability. He just gets it. Different wounds need different kinds of care.
And this slide just lays it out so perfectly. For Arjuna, who was lost in confusion and anxiety, the prescription was cognitive clarity. For Draupadi, who suffered trauma and humiliation, it was emotional safety. And for Gandhari, drowning in grief and loss, it was simply a compassionate presence. He meets every single person exactly where they are.
And what this all points to is one single, powerful core principle. When it comes to human suffering, there is no one-size-fits-all solution, period. Real healing, true healing, depends entirely on understanding the person and their specific situation.
Okay, so this is all really fascinating ancient wisdom, right? But what does it actually teach us about our own modern minds? How can we take these principles and apply them to our own lives, to our own understanding of mental wellness, right here, right now?
So, what are the big lessons for us? Well, first, that real healing isn't just logic or just compassion. It's a balance of both. Second, that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just acknowledge someone's pain. That's the first step. And the goal is always, always to empower someone, not to make them dependent. And maybe the biggest one, that real strength isn't about not having emotions. It's about mastering our own emotional turbulence. And really, this just gets to the absolute heart of his method. It doesn't matter if he's using logic or comfort or just his presence. The ultimate goal is always the same. It's not to hand someone the answers, but to help them awaken their own inner insight and their own strength. So I guess I'll just leave you with this final question to think about. If a psychological framework this smart, this sophisticated, exists inside this one ancient story, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Where else, in what other old stories or traditions, might we be overlooking profound wisdom for our modern minds?